My name is Lana Kestner, and I'll be going over how I built my rocket stove. My material choice was these half cinder blocks. I knocked out the side of one of them just with a hammer and stacked them on top of each other to create this hollow L shape. The fire would go in the horizontal cinder block laying down, and then it would funnel through to the pot on top. You could buy this for just $5 at Home Depot. It's really inexpensive. To get my fire going, I started off by putting some dry grass at the bottom and lit that on fire, and it got going pretty quickly, so I got my water ready to boil.
Get out of here.
My aunt and uncle's dog Ranger kept getting in the way as I was recording, but that's okay. He was just trying to be helpful. The pot sat really nice on top of the cinder blocks so that the cracks that were showing were so small, there really wasn't enough of a gap for any heat to escape. At first it was a bit difficult to tend to the fire since I only had this cinder block tunnel to shove sticks through, but over time I found a system that worked well. My main point of concern throughout this process was that when I took out the side of one of the cinder blocks in the center, gaps and cracks formed, which allowed for some heat and smoke to escape. My solution in the moment was to scoop these small rocks around the cracks where smoke and heat were coming out. The issue that I saw that arose after that was that this cut off all ventilation and airflow from the fire, which caused it to die out a little bit, so I had to come up with a new solution to get it going and more heat produced. I found that rather than shoving sticks into the entryway into the fire, creating these little bundles of dried grass was what the fire took to the best and created the most heat. After continuously adding the straw bundles, I found that my fire really took off, especially after I scraped off some of the pebbles and rocks from the back side of the fire so that it had better ventilation. From building the rocket stove to the water actually boiling, it took me almost 40 minutes. At this point, I was hungry and I didn't want good boiling water to go to waste, so I decided to make some mac and cheese. While the mac and cheese is being made, I'll do an overview of my biggest takeaways from this project and assess what I could do better if I were to do this again. Although it took me a little bit to figure out the best way to feed the fire, I would stick with using dry grass in the future as it produced the most heat. And at this point, I was so focused on recording the video that I spilled some noodles. Thankfully, Ranger was around to clean up my mess. Looking back, I may have been a bit more careful when breaking the cinder block so as not to create so many cracks for heat to escape, but at the same time, those cracks did function as ventilation. So maybe in the future, I wouldn't pile up so many rocks so to allow the heat and the smoke to escape as needed. I really liked my general design. I found it very simple, easy to put together, and extremely inexpensive. If I were to do this project again, I do think that I could do it in half the time. I have a solid method of feeding the fire, and I would not repeat my mistake of cutting out the ventilation and blocking the oxygen flow. My biggest takeaway from this project is that I have never felt more successful while eating a bowl of mac and cheese.